Ho, ho, ho. Hello,
Ho,
Bill
ho,
Wadman.
ho! Merry Christmas!
I wonder
Bob
which one of
Cratchit.
us looks more ridiculous, you or me.
Well, mine has this like weird bobble thing where yours is a little bit more.
Yeah, mine's my daughter's, and lucky it fits on my head.
How does that still fit on your head? You must have a very small head.
It's my bird brain.
Ah, I see.
Hmm.
Yes, it is a Merry Christmas here in the United States, a Happy Christmas there in the UK. Or have people in the UK taken to saying Merry now?
Well, I think we could look at where that first came from, and it might be that actually it was Merry Christmas from merry old England.
Oh, really? Was it?
Hmm. I'm not sure if we
Merry
could.
Christmas came from merry old England. I don't know that I realized it.
Oh, we can't be this geeky. Anyway, welcome to our annual Christmas special.
Dun, 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 dun.
This evening, festivity. Bill, how do you celebrate Christmas?
By doing an annual Christmas episode with you.
Apart from that,
I don't.
you don't.
No, not
I
really.
find this so bizarre.
No tree, no no trimmings. Yeah, we don't do Christmas really. Yeah, it's weird. Why? Do you think people should? You're pro holiday?
It's not that I think people should. I'm just
Hmm.
surprised that you don't.
Yeah, I've never particularly liked Christmas.
Is that because there's some residual trauma from childhood about Christmas?
No, I was spoiled as a child on Christmas. I just yeah, I don't know. I think it's because it's the end of the year, and I always feel like I haven't done everything I wanted to do in the last year. And my birthday's coming up because my birthday's in early January, so like it all just feels like this weird. Everything gets clustered together at the same time, and nothing ever feels satisfying. Yeah,
Wow.
but I know a lot of people who are big Christmas fans, trees and everything.
Yeah, I mean, I love Christmas. In fact,
I,
had I not just caused a total catastrophe behind me, I had decked out my bookcase with lots of nice twinkly starlights. But as I
by the
was,
way, do they do fresh trees? Do they do live trees, dead? You know what I mean? Do they cut down trees? Is that still a big thing in the UK, or do they get fake trees? What does everyone do?
well, I always have a real tree.
You always have a real tree. Okay, yeah. And how much does it cost for a real tree in Bournemouth nowadays?
Is this what we've come to, Bill?
I'm just curious because it is crazy expensive here in Brooklyn, and I that's part of the reason why I don't get a tree is like I don't want to spend $200 on a tree.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
the UK likes real trees, I think.
Man, I'm gonna move to the UK and start getting some real trees.
I mean, I feel so inspired. I'm actually going to
Yep.
show you my real tree.
Oh, let's see it. Let's see it.
Yeah, I was a bit devastated about my Christmas decorating behind me, but I've got
Wow,
other
look at all that. Look at all that. There's stars and baubles. What do you do with this stuff the rest of the year?
people in the garage.
Oh,
The
that's very
tree.
nice. That's very nice.
I've
Whole
got
family participating in the tree.
musical
Yeah.
mice and suffragettes on the piano.
Now, are you a star or an angel person on top?
It's a star.
Okay. Yeah. We were angel people when I was growing up. I feel like it's a real distinctive thing of people who have Christmas trees, whether it's the star or the angel.
Well, we all do it differently, don't we?
We do.
Slightly different. Anyway,
Yeah.
Christmas photograph. Malick Sidibé. Nuit de Noël. Happy couple. 1963. Do you know Malick Sidibé?
I don't think I do actually.
So, I mean, I don't know a lot. I do know that he's a highly celebrated photographer in his native Mali. And this
Not,
photograph is from Christmas Eve, 1963. And the couple, actually, it's not a romantic couple, it's a brother and sister.
it's funny living in a place where, especially when growing up, that there was a chance of snow on Christmas. Like Christmas is cold. of course, in the southern hemisphere or somewhere on the equator, like Mali, like not a lot of chance for what we traditionally think of as Christmas, at least in like the Western countries.
Yeah, I mean, it got me thinking about that actually. My daughter's friend is on holiday in Tenerife just now. And I said to Imogen, would you like to go away ever at Christmas time, somewhere hot and sunny? And she said, oh, no, it wouldn't be Christmassy. And
Yeah,
I really do feel that. I completely get what she means. And it's not that it's particularly cold here in the south of England, but growing
right.
up in Scotland, it was often very cold by this time of year.
Well, look at the hats we're wearing. These hats are meant to keep your head warm in cold weather, you know.
But thinking about people in different places and what Christmas might mean, I've been thinking a lot about how the Christmas message is lost. And I say this as somebody who's not a Christian, yet who
The,
celebrates
the,
Christmas with a great deal of respect for the Christmas story and the Christian festival, even though I know
what,
that's horribly unfashionable. I have lots of,
what then do you see as the meaning of Christmas that's being lost?
well, this came about again through conversations with young people my daughter's age, where they were talking about remembering going to church with their school.
Hmm,
And so the school I work in used to go to the local church every year with main school students, and we don't do that any longer. And there's all kinds of reasons for that.
yeah, whether they're Christian or not, was it just sort of
Yeah.
almost a quasi-secular religious thing, kind of?
Everyone goes along, everyone would sing the carols. There were sometimes children from usually other religious groups that
Hmm.
chose not to do that. But that was an exception. Again, I'm speaking to the conditions of the place in which I work. The location
Sure.
is very white British.
Hmm.
And so it would be more unusual, I guess, to have somebody who did not want to participate in a kind of Christian festival.
Sure. It's just interesting because, I've been to Passover Seder's, I've been to, you know, Jewish weddings and Muslim weddings and Eastern Orthodox weddings. It's interesting that, like, that we can't just go to each other's things and just have it be, well, it's like, oh, well, we're just celebrating a different thing.
Sure.
Hmm.
Um, but I do wonder, as the kind of collective of the mostly Christian conditioned British people,
Sure.
why we seem to have developed such a reaction and an allergy to the Christian element of Christmas. And I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sorry to say that actually, I think a lot of people speak very negatively about the influence of the US on our understanding of what Christmas means. I think the US gets a bad rap and a lot of blame in England, in the UK, for commercializing Christmas. I'm sure that Brits
Sure.
have done that all by themselves. But what I mean
Sure.
is that it seems to me there's a lot of feeling that a Christmas that we might feel nostalgic for has been lost through its commercialization, and that there are people to blame for that.
What, like some Dickensian view of this, all of this nonsense?
Yeah. And
Yeah.
even that
Was
is
that ever even
obviously,
there, or was that all in Charles's head? You know what I mean?
well, Dickens, it's almost as if you knew, Bill.
I didn't. I'm just that good.
Oh, well, Frederick Barnard, and but Fred Barnard, you may know actually, worked a lot on Dickens's novels. In the 1870s, after Dickens had died, was a prolific illustrator. He was very young when he died, Bernard. He was only 40.
Hmm.
Um, 40, 50, still very young. Anyway, he was very well known. He was considered the Dickens of black and white drawing,
Hmm.
black and white art in his day. Um, he met the most awful end. I just have to tell you that he had three children. His son, who he adored and who would sometimes come to draw with him, Geoffrey, died in 1891, this year, from a heart issue. And after that, Bernard fell into a bleak depression and became addicted to laudanum, which lots of people did, because it cured all kinds of ailments.
I,
precisely
I spent a
Victorian.
good 15 years addicted to laudanum.
Anyway, it was very unfortunate because poor old Fred was smoking in bed, high on laudanum, and he set fire to his bedclothes whilst he was unconscious.
Not a
And
good way to go.
no, not at all. I mean, the cause of death apparently was suffocation, but his charred remains spoke of a totally ghastly end to a short
How old was he?
40, I think, 18, 40,
Would
50.
you recognize this as Christmas?
Well, again, this is the whole theme, festivity, Christmas. Here we
Yeah.
are, our silly Santa hats on. I'm thinking about what does
Speak
Christmas
for yourself,
actually
Sandy.
look like?
Uh,
What does Christmas look like, though?
yeah, I think that, I think we have our modern sort of Coca-Cola advertising view of Christmas. You know,
Mm,
the Santa, the sleighs, the snow, the all of that Hallmark Channel nonsense.
mm,
I think that, I think that that shifts over time. I think there's so much nostalgia involved in all of it, right?
mm.
It's what we believe. Did the people in the 1920s, which we maybe look back on and say, oh, the people back in the early 20th century, they knew what Christmas was, or late 18th or late 19th century. But then those people probably looked back at the people in 1820 and thought they knew what Christmas was. And,
But what I
um,
find interesting is that outside of that kind of nostalgia that's very much in a Western context,
yeah,
it's interesting to know, remember, and think about how others, still in a Christian context, will
sure.
have appreciated Christmas, would have participated in a kind of Christmas festivity.
I mean, could Christmas and all of these other uh, uh, holidays, I mean, to me, this brother and sister look less like they're celebrating the birth of Jesus and more just sort of celebrating the marking of time. That becomes a big element of all of this.
Well,
Something that I try to lean into now because I don't believe any of the other stuff. But it's like, well, it's one more time around the sun that we all got to be here to do, or some of us did.
I mean, marking time in this, I mean, again, I know that you don't know
Sure.
what I'm going to share with you when you come on. But this actually, I did want to talk about the marking of time. Sidibé was really interesting because he spent a lot of his life photographing, particularly youth culture, in Bamako, the capital of Mali, and photographed often young couples actually, and he would then either be commissioned to do so or he would be out kind of just scouting around looking for interesting people to photograph who were young. And I mean, Mali had been under French colonial rule since the 90s, and
Hmm.
then had been liberated in 1960, so called. And so in 1963, young people were experiencing this wave of optimism, this wave of kind of joyousness and hopefulness. And
Hmm.
what's fascinating is if we look at Sidibé's work, and I would encourage people to do that because the photographs are fascinating and very beautiful, especially if you like black and white photographs. And you can see the kind of disenchantment with what's going on in the kind of forthcoming or subsequent um, kind of dictatorships and coups and all the kind of political strife that meant that there was, I guess, social repression, economic hardship, and so on as we went
Hmm.
into the late 60s and early 70s in Mali. I mean, it's something that I don't know a lot about, but I have a sort of sense that with somebody like Sidibé, you can really track through time how joy is squashed, how festivity rises up and gives us this hope. I mean,
Sure.
Christmas, it
I,
doesn't even really matter. Anything could be the
I
source.
mean, I don't know the details of Malian independence, but I can imagine that there's some sense of, well, at least we're still not over there. At least something's changing. And then, it maybe turns into something, especially if, I mean, you said 1960 it was. So, it's like a few years after independence, there's probably still some promise left of, oh, what this could be.
Yeah, and
And these
even
are also young people. They're seeing their lives and trying to put their country into perspective with their own life.
well, yeah, I mean, youth culture at this point, 1963, this definitely would not have complied with these young people's parents' generation and what they
They
thought
could be
was,
listening to the Beatles right there for all we know.
well, they would have been. And actually, Sidibé was really interested in the broadening of awareness of particularly rock and roll. Um, he would have been interested in the Beatles. He lived until 2016. There's a whole host of images that track like a timeline through youth culture. He opened his own studio in 1962 as well. And I think so for him, he was also kind of mirroring his own optimism in his photographs at the time. But it struck me as just an interesting photograph. This is probably his best known photograph outside of Mali. Well, I mean, I know it is. This is the only photograph of his I knew about until I thought of it for this and then looked at all this other work.
Hmm.
And um, I think it's also interesting to pair this with this image, an equal footing, a Christmas dance at a country house. When I think about that title and I see what's in the image, I think about suffrage.
Sure.
But this is a bit early. What this is actually about is service. A lot of the people
Sure.
in this image are servants, and the man in the
Yeah.
middle is the squire. So, an equal footing is really about, again, a burgeoning newness, a sense of equalitarianism that is coming. So, there's a kind of parity with a sort of hopefulness for the everyman that I might find with this young, happy couple. And that's not to say that this young, happy couple are in service. It's simply that they
Yep.
were part of a wave of hopefulness that something was changing.
Well, there's also like a dynamism and the unknown where this British one does feel far more like, um, you know, stability comes with repression, you know.
Yeah,
Uh, it's also crazy that 1891 to 1963, it's 72 years. There were people who were alive who could have, like that kid on the right holding the pig,
yeah,
could have been alive standing right behind the photographer in Mali in 1963.
yeah. And likewise now in our tunnel of time, our
Sure.
parents were alive at that point.
Yep.
I'm sure
Yeah.
there are photographs of my mum somewhere, or
Yeah. My
certainly
mother
my
would
aunt.
be 6'15", 16, 15. Yeah.
My aunt would have been 80.
Yeah. Right. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And they're all still alive, you know, or at least, you know, yeah.
Sadly, not with my aunt, but she would have been 80. And when I think of that, I think this is so fascinating. Again, we're talking about how Christmas travels across place and time, and also just simply perception, even starting with thinking about, do you have a fairy or an angel or a star on the top of your tree? Are you celebrating Christmas in warmth or in cold? Are you celebrating Christmas because you want to get presents or give presents? Are you celebrating Christmas because genuinely you want to celebrate the birth of Christ? Are you
Or are you
remembering?
celebrating it all?
Are you
Sure.
celebrating at all? Are you reflecting on the pagan origins of Christmas?
Is
Uh,
there a right way or a wrong way to do that?
well, to me, it all seems like I'm sure I'll get torn down for this. I love that we can find
Go
things.
on.
No, I love that we can find things to celebrate.
Hmm.
I don't mean we ought to blindly go into things and not consider that perhaps origins of our festivals are rooted in some kind of violence or evil. I mean, you and I have touched upon and then not really explored Thanksgiving. I think that's too
Hmm.
hot a potato, certainly for me, to want to discuss with you.
American Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I would say Christmas has its own contentions, of course, for different groups
Hmm.
of people. But really, can we take the sting out the tail of things ever to just appreciate them for being joyful? Must there always be a
Well,
temperance of, um, or just temperance with joy?
or a twist or a turns out this thing is evil that you thought was good, or politically it's bad, or don't say this or don't say that. Why can we just step back and just enjoy things for what they are and understand that everything's complicated and everything's a double-edged sword and everything is life is complicated?
Yeah. I mean, just to finish on this photograph, the thing I think is very clever about this, and of course it was candid, it wasn't set up or planned.
Hmm.
And I don't even think that this young couple knew that they were being photographed. Later in his studio, he did a lot of set portraits. But for this, they were just being. The chairs that are empty, watching them,
Yeah.
are, um, such a neat, I guess, visual metaphor for the absence of the elders, a sense that they were just moving in their own time.
Or those two empty chairs you see are the chairs they were sitting in, you know? Yeah. But the idea
Um,
that they're not being watched, they're doing it for themselves.
mm. Whereas,
This is all about structure and strategizing, or yeah.
well, I mean, I just want to say that the squire in the middle, on his left or right, is his lady, but on the
Hmm.
other side is the housekeeper.
His lady doesn't seem excited to be there, though, I have to say.
No, she doesn't. And also the thing I find amusing is that I mean he worked for Punch, you can tell that just
Sure.
by looking at this, but he did like to satirize things. But an equal footing, what a cheeky little title.
Did you also notice too? Not only does it say Barnard up in the upper center on in the frame. Did you see that?
Yeah.
But also he signed it 91. It's like, yeah, 1891. Like I think we all imagine, oh, it's 24, it's 12, 20, 24 or whatever. And it's
I
like,
have a
okay, well,
huge problem with it being 2024. When I think that we're living through the 20s, that doesn't seem right at all. The 20s to me are
right.
the roaring 20s of, flappers.
2025 is the year that Marty McFly went forward to in Back to the Future too.
And
It's
that's
like
a fantastic Christmas movie, isn't it? Back to
that's 5 days from now, or 20 to 15 days from now. It's like it's nuts.
And of course, coming up very soon in January is your birthday.
It is when I turn the big 5-0. I know.
Anyway, Bill, I do
Hmm.
wish you a very, very Merry Christmas.
Thank you, my dear.
I
I wish
hope we
you
have
one
much
as
more of
well.
that.
And less of the other one. You want the other one too. I can tell because you're British.
I do love a bit of Dickens.
You're nothing if not a Dickensian woman. I know.
Well, I can't see that, having a bit of theatre in one's Christmas is wrong. And I have to say the
Sure.
particular type of theatre I would enjoy is definitely something along the lines of Christmas Carol.
I hope it's snowing outside right now as you say that.
Bye, Bill.